What's up, everybody? Peter X the Coffer here, and welcome to Three Things of the Month. This is for, let me see, March and April 2025. So, I usually take a couple weeks to think on the issues I'm going to cover. So, this month or this episode, we're going to look at Val Kilmer, who passed away. I think in April, but he passed away in this time frame. Looking specifically at the movie, his Doors movie. So that's thing one. Thing two would be the singles chart on Billboard is frozen again. The second time I've noticed. We'll get into that a little deeper. And the third thing I want to talk about is Rick Rubin. He came out, one of the great producers of all time, came out with a book. And it took me a while to figure him out, but I think I figured him out, and so I want to get into that. So let's get going. So Val Kilmer did the Doors movie. I did not know this, but he did the vocals for the movie. And I was watching Robbie Krieger recently, the guitars for the Doors, and Rick Beato interviewed him, and then Rick Rubin interviewed him, and he was impressed with the work that Val Kilmer put in, preparing for that role and particularly practicing the singing. And I tell you, I mean, you know, Krieger was impressed by it. Other Doors members, from what I understood, they were impressed by his ability and the dude Jim Morrison. I mean, Jim Morrison was a great singer, and to do that is pretty special and pretty amazing. Yeah, so that what more needs to be said? He's an artist. He put in the work. I think he did a great job in that role. I know the Doors movie is controversial, amongst Doors fans. 50-50. I mean, some Doors fans hate it, and some Doors fans like it. I actually like it. I mean, I don't, those types of movies, you merge characters, you merge things, you try to get the essence of the character, and I think Oliver Stone via Val Kilmer did that. Because I mean, he was the first. Jim Morrison was the first real rebel, and I, discussed this a little bit in the Jim Morrison and the Doors branding. But I mean, Elvis. I mean, Jim Morrison is still a rebel today. Elvis was a rebel back then, in the '50s. But I mean, he was a sweet, pretty sweet, guy, a mama's boy. He wasn't challenging the system, despite, I mean, I did an episode on Elvis the movie, so, and broke down some of the history there. He's controversial, but it's not, I mean, Elvis was a great performer, a great singer, a great artist. But, I really think that, Val Kilmer put in the work and really did a good job of capturing the rebel inside of Jim Morrison. So yeah, I mean, Batman Forever. I like that movie. He played Batman in that movie. I like my superhero stuff, so I have to give him props for that. And then The Saint, but rest in peace, Val Kilmer. He was a great artist, and glad I got to, partake of some of his art. Number two, so the singles charts have been pretty stationary, and here we are sitting in, heck, the end of May. And it's been pretty stationary. I think I did an episode or my three things last year, in the first 3 months of 2024, it kind of, it got really stuck. It's not as stuck as it was back then, but it's still pretty stuck. And Rick Beato says he only does, the critique of the Billboard Hot 100 quarterly because he thinks, they're more stuck than the charts are more stuck than I do. I mean, this is the second time I've mentioned it in the last 2 years. Again, it's hard and it's very expensive to break new artists. TikTok, I mentioned this a couple times. The record companies pulled stuff off of TikTok uh, because they said they weren't getting paid. I think it was because they wanted the algorithm, because that's the big breaker now when it comes to new artists. So they settled. We never knew, are they getting paid and the algorithm or what? So who knows? When I talk about to take the throne, I mean, who's gonna, the who's the next king and queen to come up? I did a couple episodes on Take the Crown, and it's hard. It was more organic in the past. I mean, things went viral. I mean, outside of TikTok, I mean, um, the record companies have to decide who they want to push and roll the dice and spend a lot of money, a lot more. You know, back in the day in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, yeah, they spent a lot of money. But usually they didn't spend any money until they, saw that an artist was moving. And it's really hard to know whether an artist is going to move, unless they do something on TikTok. And so, they have to roll the dice. And it feels like in this era, particularly boomers and Gen Xers, feel like, yeah, I don't know if you heard that. This is the day before the Indy 500, and I live up the street. So that was the flyover, I think, for the Jets. Anyway. So, where was I? So, yeah. Um, yeah, going back to Gen X and boomers, there's a feeling that uh, the music scene is pretty homogeneous, and that they're shoving the same thing down everybody's throat. Uh, Same formula, different name, and to some extent they're probably right. Now, they generalize and say that millennials and Gen Z musicians aren't as good as past musicians. Well, that's not the case. I mean, you have to go and you have to dig and you have to look. I mean, if you go, as I said before, alternative hip hop, alternative rock, there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, alternative rock is basically now the pop we were used to, that takes risks and is a little more experimental, and it's not, alternative rap. There's a lot of good stuff there. I think the underground rap, and these are playlists on Spotify. So Spotify is the best when it comes to playlists. So, I mean, there's still a lot of good music out there. You just have to know where to find it, and you have to know the right playlist. So yeah, so that's number two. Number three, Rick Rubin. So when I got his book, finally, uh, Black Friday of 2024. Wasn't impressed with the book, and everybody was talking about the book when it first came out. And, so I went on YouTube and saw folks interviewing Rick Rubin, and wasn't impressed with these interviews either, because he really wasn't giving examples. He was, it was generalization. The book, to me, I glanced through it, was generalization. And he had been in the room and produced such great acts. I mean, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, came out of Def Jam and the hip hop scene, the Beastie Boys, particularly the Beastie Boys. I mean, one of the best, most, experimental artists of all time. And then Tom Petty. I mean, just so many, and then a lot of folks in the rock genre, just so many good people he had worked with. And then I go to these interviews, and it's just like, what's the deal here? Make it interesting. Well, I found that most of the people in those early interviews were not artists. And to really bring the best out of Rick Rubin, you need to put him, in a room, or put him in conversation with artists. So that's the kind of the cheat code for Rick Rubin. I finally got it when Rick Beato interviewed Rick Rubin, and I was like, okay, this has been what I've been waiting for. And then Rick turned around and interviewed Rick Beato, and that was really good. So Rick Rubin has his own own YouTube channel, Tetragrammaton, and where he interviews artists. So as I mentioned earlier, I watched the episode where he interviews Robbie Krieger, and he does interview. They're mostly artists. I did catch excerpts from his Matthew McConaughey interviews. I wanted to see how well he did non-musicians, and I thought the excerpt I saw from Matthew McConaughey was very good. Let's see, he's done. Who's all has he done? Kendrick Lamar, Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons is on my list of Kiss, and some other actors, and he's done filmmakers too. And so he's a really good interviewer when he gets other artists around him. So that would be my cheat code of my when you're going to get the wisdom of Rick Rubin. I am assuming Rick Rubin's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because he's one of the great producers of all time. And of course, Johnny Cash. Wow. I remember he was in the Beato interviews talking about his song from one of the Tom Petty albums, and he's like, "Yeah," and it was either on that on this one song he did not. It just worked. He did not use reverb. It was either on the acoustic guitar or the vocals, and I remember like, "Oh, wait, you can do that?" And it was kind of crazy because. That just blew my mind because mixing and mastering 101, apply the reverb correctly. Now reverb is essentially echo, and not when you don't have reverb, it's called dry, and you have small room reverb and large hall reverb. So it's basically, and in this era, folks use a lot of reverb, to say the least. And another related on that subject, George Clinton said, I saw him in an interview recently, and he said, One Nation Under Groove was a demo, and they used a demo version, and because it sounded the best, and they did this song, and when they mastered it, it didn't sound right, so they just put it out on mastered, which is kind of wild. I think nowadays, mastering's different than what it was back in the day because, two things in mastering. One, you do, when you mix, you're doing each track and each instrument and each track, and you equalize it and add reverb and digital delay and these other effects. The first thing in mastering you do is you apply those same effects to the entire song. And then the second thing you do, and this was with the onset of the CD era, is you boost the volume. And I think that's, I'll have to check because I'm, kind of riffing right now. But I think back, it was 78 when One Nation Under a Groove came out, and I'm gonna double check this, and if I'm wrong, I'll make a comment in the notes. But in the '70s, they didn't boost the volume. If you remember when the CDs came out, when it says remastered, essentially most of that is boosting the volume in the song. And then there was the loudness wars. I don't know whether that was the late 90s or 2000s, when streaming first came out, because the theory was the louder songs would get more play. And then the streaming services came up with a standard of you can't be louder than this version, which, us folks who do the music know. I think this 14 LUS. I'm not even sure what LUS stand for, but I know when I, individually master, you're supposed to go between 14 and 16. And that's what I do. And I don't know what that measures or what that even means, but hey, that's the deal. So yeah, I found out a couple things, and again, my cheat code for Rick Rubin is you know he's much better when he has artists. He's in conversation with fellow artists. So yeah, those are the three things. Thanks for coming through. Again, my name is Peter Exodus O'Coffer. I have 6 albums of my own. I recorded under the name Exodus. They're attached to my channel here, and I'm on all the streaming services. My first album is called Book One. You can also look up two albums, the 317 Volume 1 and Volume 2, separate albums there. I also write science fiction and fantasy, and I have a novella and 2 novels on Amazon, and I write under the name Peter Exodus O'Coffer. So again, I appreciate you coming through, and I will see you next episode.